This episode is brought to you by Stars. Lisa Tadeo's best-selling book is about to become your favorite new show. Based on a true story, the new Stars original series 3 Women stars Shailene Woodley as Gia, a grieving and struggling writer who embarks on a cross-country road trip where she meets 3 women determined to radically change their lives. This one is not to be missed. Watch the season premiere of 3 Women now, only on Stars and the Stars app.
Your teen requested a ride, but this time not from you. It's through their Uber teen account. You drive your teenager around, a lot, to their friend Jacob's house, their other friend Jake's house, to James's, to Jaden's, to Jalen's, to...
Mom? This is Jake's house, not Jacob's.
Now with an Uber teen account, your teen can request a ride under your supervision. They'll ride with a highly rated driver, and with live trip tracking, you'll follow along the whole ride to their friends' houses that all sound the same. Add your teen to your Uber account today. See app for details.
Bye, Mom.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate is the world's biggest coffee lover because we love all the ways you enjoy. Wait. Coffee Mate can't love coffee more than me. I'm a foodie. I went to Kyoto just for a nitro matcha latte. What? Oh, I have to finish the ad. Coffee Mate, for the love of coffee.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Hey all you heroes, hawks, heralds, crows, pirates, and wardens. Welcome to the Dragon Age Lorecast, where we unpack, discuss, and galaxy brain about all the lore behind the Dragon Age series.
We are so excited to bring you this podcast. Every episode, we'll be talking about a different topic in the Dragon Age universe, from character deep dives to exalted marches and elven gods. We will cover it all.
There will be spoilers. And always remember, swooping is bad.
Hello and welcome to the Dragon Age Lorecast, where we talk about Dragon Age and its lore. I'm one of your hosts, Austin, also known as Teacup.
And I'm your other host, Shelby or Shecup.
And we're continuing with our book series on season 8, I believe, is the season that we are on. This is episode 16. I never say the episode number, but this is episode 16 of this season. We are continuing with our comics, Magekiller and Knight Errant.
I actually think this is episode 17.
Oh, well, the show notes are mislabeled.
I know they are. Actually, maybe not. I don't have any idea because everything's wrong because we've rearranged this season more than once with the news that has been released over Dragon Age Summer. So I'm like, I don't know what anything is anymore. So, welcome to the episode.
Yes, episode 16 or 17.
Or 15. I don't really know.
Or maybe 18. Who knows?
Anyway, so we are back with another piece of literature, not smutty this time. And so we're actually looking at 2 comics today. The first will be Magekiller and the second is Knight Errant. So, Austin, what do you know about these 2 comics, if anything, before we just jump right in?
I will be quite honest. I thought I had read the Magekiller comics before because I thought they were about Fenris, and that was what his series of comics were called. But I now remember that his series of comics are called the Blue Wraith. And so I came in here and then it was about these 2 people. I was like, who are these people? Wait a minute. I recognize that name. Oh, I have been mistaken.
Yeah, so Fenris is not in these, unfortunately. We will get to Blue Wraith and the Teventer comics, Wraiths of Teventer, if you will, which I think we'll have some criticisms of those. But let's save that for another episode and focus on Magekiller and Knight Errant, which, if you listen to our last episode on comics, which were the first 3 graphic novels, so The Silent Grove, Those Who Speak, and Until We Sleep. I think I'm saying that in the right order. If not, please forgive me. We had a lot of criticisms about those. We did not particularly enjoy them. We felt that they were very dated and very, very problematic in a lot of different ways. These, however, are a lot better. So I think we're going to have some really positive things to say about these. So let's just dive right into Magekiller. So first and foremost, this is a 6-part comic series. So this one was a bit longer than the rest. And Magekiller was written by Greg Rucka and illustrated by Carmen Carnero and Sachin Tang, and published by BioWare and Dark Horse throughout 2016. And then lastly, this one takes place before and during Dragon Age Inquisition. It roughly spans a couple of years from about 941 Dragon to 942 Dragon.
Yeah, I honestly was not expecting the time frame on this. I thought when it first started, I was like, oh, this is after Inquisition. They're hunting down mages. And then when we introduced the Archon, I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And then we get to the reveal at the end of like the first set of like the 4th target. And I was like, wait a minute, this is...
How did Calpurnia come back to life?
Exactly. Well, she doesn't always die, right? You can spare her in Inquisition.
I think you can, yeah. But it is kind of, yeah. I don't think it's a one way or the other. Like, doesn't Samson die no matter what?
No, because I think you can bring him back in Judgment.
Oh, you can. You're right.
And Cullen sits in, because you basically say, as the closest thing to leader of the Templars, Cullen, you can judge this.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so yes, Calpurnia does make an appearance. So let's just dive right into the plot overview, and I'll go through the plot, Austin, and then we can kind of talk about any analysis that we have afterward. So in Magekiller, Tessa, Forsythia, and Marius are mercenary partners who specialize in killing mages, hence the name of the comic. After working a job in Hercynia and the Free Marches, they notice that they're being followed. The follower ends up being an elven slave named Flavius. His master is Magister Ilaneva. The Magister has learned of a group of blood mages who sacrifice children at the end of each month to fuel uniquely powerful blood magic rituals, and they plead for Marius's help in taking them down. Though Marius is not pleased at all at the idea of returning to Teventer, where he was once a slave himself, he accepts the offer. They travel to the site of the ritual, which were some ruins in the Valerian fields just north of Minrathous. Upon their arrival, however, they find no trace of the children or the blood mages. Instead, they encounter Flavius, dozens of Teventer soldiers, and none other than Archon Redonus himself. Redonus wants to hire them to assassinate the Venatori, at least 4 members of the Venatori. Marius wants to refuse, but Tessa knows that there is no refusing this job. You can't just turn down the Archon of Teventer. They both suspect that Redonus will also have them assassinated at the end of their contract, even if they follow his orders. But regardless, they take on the job, and their 4 main targets are Havian Solara, Corinia Cralius, Paulus Nimian, and Calpurnia. Tessa kills Havian while Marius kills Corinia and Paulus. As Marius and Tessa go together to kill the 4th and final target, Calpurnia, Marius realizes that she is actually his former lover from when they were both slaves to Magister Erasthenes. They share a passionate kiss, which is interrupted by Tessa. She realizes that Marius is never going to complete this assassination, which of course would incur the Archon's wrath. And so they argue over their next course of action, but Calpurnia offers to use the Venatori to smuggle them out of Minrathous. Over the following months, Rhodonis sends several hit squads after them, and as they kill the last of the third group of assassins who have tracked them all the way to the Frostbacks, the breach opens up above them. In the months after the breach, they spend their time fighting demons and evacuating citizens. After a particularly nasty brawl on a nearby farm, Tessa and Marius recuperate at a tavern, which is where they meet Inquisition Scout Charter, who recruits them to the Inquisition. The Inquisition sends them on several missions, namely to the Hissing Wastes to deal with the Venatori excavating the ruins there, but they ended up needing help, and this help comes in the form of Dorian Pavus, along with Cremisius Aclassi and some of the other members of the Bull's Chargers. They fight the Venatori and free the slaves, and when the fight is over, they part with Dorian and Krem, heading to Caer Bronach. There, they meet back up with Charter, or at least they expected to, but none other than Sister Nightingale is waiting for them instead. Liliana sends them to help with the final push against Corypheus, helping to clear a path up the mountain to the Temple of Sacred Ash so that the Inquisition can get reinforcements to the Inquisitor. Sutherland and company go with them. The comic ends with them battling demons and sacrificing for one another during the fight. So really quickly before we get into analysis, character spotlight. I really just feel like there are three main characters in this, which are Tessa, Forsythia, Marius, and Calpurnia. And Calpurnia even is I've debated putting her on the list. But it should be noted that this one is a star-studded cast. We've got major players, from the Archon of Tevinter to Liliana, to the Inquisitors mentioned. Charter is important as well. Like, there are major players in this one, and I should be remiss, Dorian obviously as well. He's my favorite. So that is everything that happens in this comic. Do you have thoughts, points of analysis, things you want to bring up?
So the first thing I want to bring up is Dorian leading the Chargers the same thing as, like, Bull basically giving him his jacket?
I'm going to go ahead and say no, because I personally, I don't know. I go back and forth because I personally either want a world state where my Inquisitor romanced Dorian, or a world state where my Inquisitor romanced Cassandra. So if my world state is where my Inquisitor romanced Dorian, then I don't want Dorian to be with Bull.
I guess that's fair. Let's be honest. Like, if there would win out, if your female Inquisitor could romance Cassandra, that would be your canon state.
Yeah, obviously. Like, no doubt about it. But
So-
that's not my reality.
Right. I'm just saying that I think this is a win for the Dory Bulls.
Okay, well, it can be that in your mind if you want it to be. I just don't want it to be. Please don't tell me that's all the thoughts you had.
I mean, really, it kind of is, other than, like, I know you wrote some stuff down on here, so I don't want to steal your thunder. But it's a good, like, alternative perspective to the time of Inquisition. I like the narration of, like, magic cheats. Marius and Tessa are mage killers who don't have to be Templars and don't have to be magic to kill these mages. And just this, it kind of, for me, levels the playing field a little bit, even though mages can still wield insurmountable power.
Yeah, and it should be said, I don't really think that they're just regular people, right? Like, they're highly trained assassins and Tessa holds a candle to Charter, one of Liliana's spies, one of Liliana's most trusted spies. So it should be said that they're quite a few heads above the rest. They're not just regular people, but they're not magic users. And I do agree with you that is significant for sure. So one of the things that I did love about this comic is that Tessa and Marius are completely platonic. They're just friends, and they very much have like an almost sibling rivalry kind of relationship going on, where she's like constantly teasing him and constantly admonishing him, which I think is fun. And Tessa's very sarcastic too, and so that's always I feel like that makes for a fun character. But Marius is very clearly hung up on Calpurnia, which I don't love, but it is what it is. I understand they both have some major trauma going on. But what I do love is that Tessa in the comics starts a relationship with Charter, which I think is really cute. I love Charter. She's one of my fave, like, side characters, I guess you could say, in Inquisition. But it should also be mentioned that Marius has some major issues with his emotions in this comic. I mean, it makes sense because he's a slave. He was a slave. And so, of course, there would be trauma there. But like it is very much, I think, goes deeper than that, because there are other former slaves we meet that are able to like talk to people and have conversations with people and able to express their emotions, and Marius is not able to do that. In fact, there's a moment in the comics where Tessa like basically she enacts both sides of the conversation and like pretends to be him and pretends to be like a talkative, thankful Marius, and she's like, that's what a thankful person would say, Marius. And so it's just it's definitely humorous, but also illustrates the point of like he cannot express his emotions whatsoever.
I remember reading when I read this, and with Marius I was like, oh, he makes Fenris look warm and cuddly.
Yes, for sure. Like, and I mean, Fenris is, I wouldn't say Fenris is open, but Fenris is at least willing to talk about why he's there. In Kirkwall, he's at least willing to talk about some of the atrocities he's faced. He's not just totally sullen and silent all the time.
Right. I get that. It also, this is really off target of this, but since we got to the issue of Charter, I was a little taken aback when I saw Charter, because I feel like she looks so different in this comic as opposed to the Missing comics.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Like, I'm pretty sure she has brown hair in the Missing comics.
Well, that's incorrect, because she has red hair in Inquisition.
So we just got all kinds of...
Yeah, it's all messed up. But the Missing is interesting because Varric's hair is very gray in that one too. So, I mean, I think Silver Fox Varric is fine as hell, don't get me wrong. But the colors in the Missing are a little bit wonky. But anyway, let's get back to Magekiller really quickly, because there's two more things that I really want to talk about before we get into our ratings. And so the first one is kind of just a little bit of a comic relief trivia bit, which is that Red Templars appear on the cover of issue number 5, but there are no Red Templars present in the story at all.
This is something, and it is worthy note that like Dark Horse is like the comic publisher.
Yeah.
Like, they publish so many things that are related to video games, to Star Wars, to Indiana Jones. Like they are the it company for publishing comics. And this is something that they do that I've noticed in other graphic novels. Like, the covers will not necessarily have anything to do with the issue. It just is like related to the world in which they are involved in. Like, sometimes a comic will interject like Batman fighting, you know, some of like Two-Face's men, even though the comic focuses on Joker. This is what the Avengers do a lot. If Iron Man is off dealing with a big travesty in his comic, he will be absent from the Avengers series for that week to try to make the world feel alive. And so I think like the Red Templars on the cover is to like show the conflict or whatever, because this kind of comic, one thing, deals in the Inquisitor went to Redcliffe Tessa comics on like we heard about what happened at Redcliffe, all of this stuff like that, and which is not, I don't think necessarily says that, but lends it for there because a tragedy happens at Redcliffe whether the Inquisitor goes there or not.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, I think that's fair because I mean we know that Red Templars, Red Lyrium is ever present in Thedas by the time of Inquisition, and obviously now in our current the 950s as well. So you're right about that. I do just think it's a little funny. But my last point is more of a theory, and I know that there were several people on our Tevinter Nights episode where we went into some theories about Veilguard that really enjoyed that. So I'm going to go into another theory about Veilguard. I find it very, very, very suspicious the amount of coincidences between Archon Radonus and Nev. Nev Gallus, the companion in Veilguard. So first of all, obviously they're both Tevinter, but Archon Radonus and Nev have the exact same color in their outfits. It's this teal color, teal and gold. And the teal, like, it is so similar that it's almost down to the hex code. I didn't verify that, but it is extremely similar. And not only that, but Nev has a prosthetic leg that is a serpent and it's gold. Well, guess what Archon Radonus' staff is? A gold 3-headed serpent. So there's that. And then there's also the fact that their skin tones are fairly similar. I wouldn't say exact, but they're fairly similar. They have similar coloring. And I do think it would make sense for her to be a bastard child of the Archon, given that we know that she grew up in Docktown, a working class neighborhood in Tevinter.
So that would make her as a mage, if you remind me of Tevinter society, it's not, an Altus is the highest, or a Magister is the highest, but like an Altus is like right after a Magister, like Dorian was an Altus.
Yeah, like the Altus are the noble mages, basically, like purebred mages. But I'm not actually certain if she would be. Oh yes, you're right. So an Altus is quote, anybody who is believed to be descendants of the Dreamers or Magisters who possess the ability to speak to the old gods in the Fade. So there's that, and then the next one down is the Latins, which is a mage who is born into a family that until that point they had no magical ability. So I do personally feel like there's some gray area in between the Latan and the Altus, because like what if you're like a third generation Latan mage? Like you're no longer from a family who didn't have a mage, but you're also not, like you can't trace your lineage all the way back to the early days of Tevinter. Does that make sense? Does that mean you're still a Leighton? Like, I don't know how that works. Maybe we'll get more info on that. But I would guess that would put Nev somewhere in between the two of those, if she is the bastard of Radonus.
I mean, it's Tevinter. Anything's possible.
But don't you think that's a little bit too suspicious? Like if it was just the snake thing or just the color thing, one or the other, I would be like, okay, yeah, that's fair. But like the color is so exact, it freaks me out.
Yeah, but could my question to you would be this: do you think BioWare is that intentional?
Well, I mean, there is concept art of Nev. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. Nev has like a teal and white outfit, and then she has like the teal nail polish. In her concept art, she has a completely teal outfit that looks almost exactly like what Archon Radonus is wearing in this comic. So you tell me.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, in all likelihood, given what we've seen of the opening of the trailer and everything, Archon Radonus is probably dead.
I mean, that's fair too. But also, like, what if Nev's story is she gets to become Archon? Like, maybe we could make her become the Archon.
Maybe. We got to pick the divine.
I know, exactly. Okay. So let's give our ratings, and then we can move on into the mid-break.
It gets a solid 4 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I think I would give a 3.5, maybe 4, somewhere between the two of those. I do like this comic a lot. I don't have any issues with the illustration. Like, no one's being objectified. There are women who do things in this comic, and that's great. My issue with this comic, and this is really the only one I have, is that so much happens in this comic, and it's a little bit difficult to keep track of.
I feel like they tried to fit in as many Inquisition cameos that they thought that could make sense.
Yes.
And it was just like, we probably would have been satisfied with like just Liliana.
Yeah, I was surprised Varric didn't make an appearance in this one, not gonna lie.
Well,
is he in it?
No, he's mentioned.
Yeah, but he doesn't appear.
Right, because Marius,
Swords and Shields.
Yeah, Swords and Shields makes an appearance.
Yeah, but Varric himself, the dwarf, does not show up.
No.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so definitely one of the better comics, I think.
I would agree with that. I think that the missing probably it's probably higher up in like comics, but again, like, does the missing rank high because I read To Venture Knights? But I also like, and we'll get to this, I really liked the Blue Wraith comic, at least the first one.
Really?
I liked the first one.
Really?
Yeah.
Even though they whitewashed your boy?
Yeah, I mean, at some level, I have to judge it based on the story.
Okay, well, I don't agree with that, but we can save that conversation for our Blue Wraith episode. So I think now would be a good time to go to our mid break.
All right, let's do it.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
I just MailChimped my marketing.
You MailChimped your what?
I MailChimped my marketing with AI to create an effective marketing campaign in minutes.
No, MailChimp and Way.
Yes, MailChimp and Way. Now I can hyper-personalize my campaigns across email and SMS.
You can do all that with MailChimp?
What did I just MailChimp and say?
MailChimp your marketing with the #1 AI-powered email marketing and automation platform, Intuit MailChimp. #1 based on publicly available data on competitors' customers. Plans vary. SMS available as add-ons. Visit MailChimp.com.
The Volvo XC60 plug-in hybrid is about performance. Not just on the road, but in life. With not only trunk space, but room to make memories. It's electric, with a backup plan, where the only speed that matters is how fast you can slow down. The Volvo XC60 plug-in hybrid. Performance where it matters the most. Visit volvocars.com/US to learn more.
What is this? A new book? All this shit is weird. Oh, Varric, that is a terrible title. What are you even thinking?
That book you were reading this morning, Hesarian's Spear. I don't think he had a spear in the legends.
He does in this one. Read the description.
Andraste knelt before no man but her maker. But she hadn't counted on the Archon Hesarian. Can Hesarian penetrate the tight-knit defenses of the warrior prophetess? Will she be prepared to face the full blast of his power? Wait a minute. Isabella, this is a vulgar thing.
You want to borrow it?
No!
You sure? It has pictures.
Not listening, I'm not listening.
Varric, does Hawk ever autograph books?
Why? Doesn't your copy of The Tale of the Champion have a big hole in it?
Yes, but it could also have Hawk's signature on it.
All right, welcome to the middle of the show where we take time to thank our patrons. So thank you to Genesis and Lisa M, who are our first patrons. If you would like your name read out on the show, if you'd like your name read out on every episode of the show, you can go on to patreon.com and join our Patreon at various tiers. If you join at any tier, you will get your name read out on the show after you have joined. And then if you join on our Divine or Nug King tier, you can get your name read out on every episode of the show. Our patron chat is coming up. So patrons, if you have not voted in the poll, please do, unless the poll is not active yet. The poll is active, so please go vote in the poll. And then, and if you want to join on. And so if you want to come in on that patron chat, it'll be a great time. Next thing I have to say is that if you want to support us but can't financially, that's totally fine. We get that. We know we love providing this content free for everyone. But you can leave us a rating or review on Apple or Spotify. And if you leave us 5 stars and some kind words, we will read it out on a future episode of the show. We do not have any ones to read today. We are caught up. So if you're still waiting, now is the time to get on there and leave us a rating or review. You can also come hang out with us on Discord if you are looking for a place to talk about Veilguard. If you're looking for a place to talk about Veilguard where you can discuss somewhere and be semi-safe from spoilers, you can come and hang out in our Discord. We are hosting a strict spoilers only in our spoiler channels. You can mute those channels and not go in there. But if you want to talk about things you're excited about without the risk of someone coming up and spoiling, you can do that in our Discord. Other than that, we have some intel to discuss today. So if you do not want any kind of information about the game at all, now's the time to either just skip ahead in our podcast or, go to the bathroom if you're listening to your car, skip ahead. Because we're going to be talking about some new information that was released from BioWare. There are no plot spoilers in what we're going to talk about, but these are about some locations that have been announced. So if you don't want any of that, now is the time to skip ahead in the podcast.
So, these are just locations that we're going to be discussing, and just briefly, not super in depth because there's not much to discuss, but there are a few things I wanted to point out. So the new locations that BioWare revealed have short YouTube videos that go along with them, 30 seconds of walking through the location, and it's pretty cool. And so the ones that they've released are the Hosberg Wetlands, which are in the Anderfels, Arlathan Forest, which everyone should be familiar with by this point, Minrathous, Teventer, obviously, a beach, Sunny Beach in Ravane, and then lastly, Treviso, a city in Antiva. The two notable things that kind of stuck out to me is, number one, I did not picture the Anderfels as having wetlands to begin with. And I went back and looked on the map and I was like, oh, there are some waterways here. But I definitely picture the Anderfels as more of a desert, more scrub, wasteland kind of not lush, not a wetland, that's for sure. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is Treviso looks amazing. I am so excited to go to Antiva, and I just wanted to bring up someone on Twitter, the app formerly known as Twitter. This person's named King of Antiva, and they made a connection between the way that Antiva looks in what BioWare has released evokes an Assassin's Creed 2 trailer, the one with the courtesans. And I completely agree. It reminds me so much of that trailer. I have a still in the show notes. And so this is just confirming and continuing my theory that everything they've written about Antiva, they're taking inspiration from Assassin's Creed on.
Yeah, I really think so, especially because so much of Assassin's Creed, inspiration, when you think of Assassin's Creed, odds are you're thinking of Ezio Auditore and the Italian influence in there. And so since Antiva is very much almost an anagram for Italia.
It's very close.
Very close. We're missing L's and T and some other letters, but it is close. So just, I think that I really enjoyed that. And even this, like, Ravane reminded me of Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Well, Ravane reminded me a lot of Spain.
Mm-hmm. Which we've theorized
before too, but I definitely also see the Black Flag comparison because it makes sense, because Ravane is where the Lord of Fortune are headquartered.
Right.
And they're literally pirates. And what is Black Flag about? Pirates. So
yeah.
I definitely see that as well.
Well, yes, and it's got that very, like, almost like teal blue water-esque of, like, that southern Mediterranean or the Caribbean. Like, that kind of, like, color and vibe.
Crystal clear water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it looks gorgeous. That's for sure. I want to be on a beach in Ravane somewhere.
Yes. With the Anderfells, it reminds me of the Falomire.
Oh, yeah. I hated that location.
It's because you hated touching the water and having to fight all the skeletons or corpses or whatever. There is also that quest with the mage who's doing, like, whatever, like he's gone crazy or something like that. And you have to fight that really, really hard level 12.
Revenant?
It's a Revenant through a Fade Rift.
Yes, yeah.
And it's a really hard fight that you can stumble upon, like...
early game.
Yes, like level 5.
I always used to go to the Falomire not first, but like one of the early things, because the keep that you can take there is pretty easy, and you have to take a certain number of keeps to be able to get
the forward scouts or whatever.
Forward scout perk, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's off topic. But that's all I have to say about these new locations. I'm really excited. And I think there's only like 40 something days until Veilguard releases, which is crazy.
Right. I mean, we're halfway through September, which means we're almost halfway to a couple weeks from being in Dragon Age month, which I'm now declaring that October is Dragon Age month. We're going to have a different Dragon Age day. I don't know. I mean, I'm not actually saying that. Like, please do not take that and be like, Teacup of the Dragon Age Lorecast said we should change Dragon Age day. Like, no, please. Unofficial Dragon Age day can stay where it's at.
Yeah. I'm just not going to comment. If we change Dragon Age Day, I think we should change it to December 5th, one day later, so that it's Dragon Age 5 instead of 4.
For anticipation.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to the show and to Knight Errant.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. With over 122 million parts, you can make sure your number one ride or die stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
This episode is brought to you by Batiste Dry Shampoo. Whether you're on the go, at the gym, or getting ready for a night out, Batiste has a dry shampoo for you. Refresh with over 10 signature fragrances. Or try Batiste Hint of Color, a tinted dry shampoo that seamlessly blends with your hair. Need an extra boost? Try Batiste Dry Shampoo with added benefits, like volumizing, texturizing, and more. Buy Batiste now, in-store or online at your nearest retailer.
The past years have been so busy. We have earned at least a few moments of rest. A calm night out sounds... Oh, bravo! Bravo! Was the woman in gold playing a king? Who was the man in feathers? Oh, it's all very simple. The first actor's mask is determined by... well, I will lend you the program guide. But tell me, did you enjoy the performance? That was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Truly. That part with the glittery, and they actually set fire to... Yes, I truly enjoyed it. Then I call tonight a great success.
I've got some of it written down now.
Give it here. Her breasts strained against the leather jerkin like two wild stallions corralled against their will. She pounced, the smooth moves of a jungle cat, and locked her thighs around Donnick's waist. He...
What?
Nothing.
What is that?
Shh. Isabella just thought she'd celebrate your love affair with a written dedication.
It's friend fiction. I do it out of love.
I will never, ever be clean again.
You fear barbarians will swoop down upon you.
Yes, swooping is bad.
All right, so welcome back. We are now in the second half going to be talking about Knight Errant, which is actually, I'm declaring it. Knight Errant is my favorite comic. For several reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into. But first, I got to give you the biographical information. So, Knight Errant is a 5-part comic series. This one was written by Nunzio De Filippis and Christina Weir with illustrations by Fernando Hines Furukawa. It is published by BioWare and Dark Horse in 2017 and in 2021 in the first 5 graphic novels. And this one takes place in 944 Dragon, so it is after Inquisition. Do you have preliminary thoughts about Knight Errant, Austin?
I think it is very, very well written. I really like all of the elfin content. One thing that was kind of jarring at first, but I really kind of appreciated, is that the elves in this story almost have the Dragon Age 2 eyes.
Yeah.
Which I really thought was a nice little, callback to, this is how the elves in Kirkwall looked, so let's make them look that way.
Yeah, there have been a lot of things that we've criticized about the illustration of the comics, but I do think that's one that is really good, and I really enjoyed that as well. So let's get into the plot overview. And this one might be a little long because there's just a lot of content in this one. But anyway, so Sir Aaron Hawthorne, a knight who is at the Battle of Ostagar and struggles with alcoholism, takes his squire, a young elven woman named Vaea, to the installation ceremony of Kirkwall's new Viscount, Varric Tethras. While in Kirkwall, Vaea takes on what she thinks will be an easy job. After all, she's not just a squire, she's also a thief. The job is to retrieve a box that has bribes in it from the gallows. The Templar sending her, Sir Nevin Faramore, promises to split the earnings. She easily steals the box and sees Varric on her way back to Hightown. He implies that he knows that she's a thief. But when they get back to the party, Sir Aaron is telling the story of how Vaea became his squire. Essentially, Arl Gel Linden had destroyed the sacred tree, or the Venedal, of the Edgehall alienage. Edgehall is in Ferelden. A Dalish clan gave them a new sapling, but the Arl confiscated it. At this sign of disrespect, the Dalish threatened to attack, and there were uprisings in the alienage. Sir Aaron was defending the city elves. And along with Aaron, King Alistair ordered the sapling to be protected and returned, and a wall constructed around the alienage. The elves there threw such a feast for Sir Aaron in appreciation that he took on Vaea as a squire in hopes that her success would then be shared with her people. After the party, coming back to the present day, Vaea stole the other half of the rewards from the Templar and gave the money to Kirkwall's alienage. She then runs into Charter, who essentially blackmails her into helping the Inquisition because it's apparently a crime punishable by death or something crazy to steal from a Templar. But there are two Inquisition agents who need to be rescued, and they are in Starkhaven. Veea and Sir Aaron go to Starkhaven along with Varric, while Aaron and Varric attend a party hosted by Sebastian Veil. Veea jailbreaks the two agents, none other than Marius and Tessa Forsythia. They tell her that their mission was to steal some notes on Red Lyrium from Prince Sebastian Veil. As they were injured upon their capture, they are unable to complete their mission, and they ask that Veea do it for them. Once again, Veea tries to refuse, but she changes her mind after she hears Sir Aaron tell Varric that he tells stories to remind people that every action has a chance to make a real difference. Just as she gets back to the palace, the guards sound the alarm, having discovered that their prisoners are missing. At the same time, Sir Aaron has been arguing with a man named Professor Marquette, who has basically levied all sorts of some true and some untrue accusations at Veea for being a thief. While all this is happening, Venatori agents have infiltrated the palace, also in search of Sebastian's Red Lyrium journal. Professor Marquette, as you may have guessed, is working with them. Veea manages to get to Sebastian's chambers first and successfully pockets the journal. As she turns to leave, she's caught by Sebastian's Seneschal Granger, who accuses her of slaughtering the guards. Just as he grabs her and starts leading her toward the cells, Sir Aaron knocks him out. He demands explanations from Veea at sword point. Sir Aaron, that is. As Veea begins to explain herself, Aaron reveals that he's always known she was a thief. He also knows and has always known that what she steals ends up in the hands of those who are less fortunate than her, and that those she steals from generally deserve it. He does express some surprise that Veea would steal from Sebastian, by all counts a kind and mostly generous ruler. She tells him that stealing from Sebastian is the Inquisition's mission, and Sir Aaron expresses a lot of happiness upon learning that Veea has finally found a cause. But they're interrupted by Marquette and his Venatori. Sir Aaron tells Veea to take the journal to the Inquisition and find a new life as he takes on the dozen Venatori on his own. Marquette chases after Veea, but Veea manages to knock him unconscious. After Sir Aaron successfully handles the attacking Venatori, he is immediately confronted by Seneschal Granger and surrenders to him. Though the Seneschal attempts to avoid a diplomatic mess by putting all the blame on Veea, Sir Aaron instead confesses to the thefts, saying that he was aware and approved of her activities, and asks that she be exonerated and given the chance for a fresh start. Veea, who has been listening to their conversation, makes herself known just before Granger brings Sir Aaron to Sebastian. She claims to have caught the journal's real thief, Professor Marquette, on Sir Aaron's orders, who was suspicious of the professor's intentions and sent her to keep watch. She also says that the journal has already been spirited away by one of Marquette's men. Though Granger isn't sure whether or not to believe her story, Sebastian does, and commends Veea and Sir Aaron for their bravery and expresses his eternal gratitude. Sir Aaron then vows to follow whoever stole the journal wherever it may lead. Once they're outside of Starkhaven, they meet back up with Charter and Varric. As you may have guessed, Veea has the Red Lyrium journal, and it revealed that the Teventers may already possess Red Lyrium. So Veea offers to go to Teventer for the Inquisition to investigate. To her surprise, Sir Aaron intends to follow her there, reminding her of his pledge to follow whoever stole the journal. Veea readily agrees, but she takes his alcohol, his wine away, and throws it away by the side of the road. And that's kind of how the story ends. So I do think the main characters in this are Veea, Sir Aaron, Varric, Charter, Sebastian. Marius and Tessa also make more minor appearances. So, thoughts that you have about this one, Austin?
Yeah. So again, this was another one where I was like, oh, this is different than what I thought, because when I first read this comic, I read it after I had read The Wraiths of Teventer. Which, spoiler for those, Sir Aaron and Veea make appearances in Wraiths of Teventer as well.
Yes, they do.
So I thought this was after that, but it is in fact
Well before.
Well before it. So again, theme of the episode, I was mistaken. So yeah, I like the backstory. I actually liked reading this after have reading Wraiths of Deventer because it was kind of like a backstory into these characters, which was an interesting order. So I was like, oh yeah, like I liked Vaea and Sir Aaron and Wraiths of Deventer, but I like to get their kind of backstory. I don't know how you read this and don't fall in love with Sir Aaron.
I know, right? And maybe it's just because we're old now, but like, again, with the Silver Fox, like, he is attractive.
Yes, and like Heart of Gold.
Yeah, and also, I mean, he's a veteran of the Battle of Ostagar, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think he's really impressive as a person because you can just tell that he's a good person. And I think there are not very few, but like the list of people in Dragon Age who truly are good people is a short list, arguably. But Sir Aaron definitely makes the list because for a number of reasons. Number one, he survives the Battle of Ostagar. Like, we've got to give him respect and props for that, number one. And number two, he survives the Battle of Ostagar, which means he was under Loghain's command. And he's not just a flaming racist. Okay, let me give you props for that too. And he's not a Loghain apologist either. And not only is he not a racist, he is, I mean, like the Dragon Age equivalent of like anti-racist because he defends this whole elven alienage when he didn't have to do anything. Like, it had absolutely no bearing on him and his life whatsoever. But he stepped in to defend this alienage from an unfair Arl. That alone, to me, proves that he is a good person.
Right, and like we've seen several veterans of Ostagar. I mean, obviously, like Alistair and the Warden are veterans of Ostagar, but Aveline is also a veteran of Ostagar, and I'm pretty sure that Carver Hawk is too.
I don't know. You know how I feel about Carver.
I know, but like there's a lot of them that we can encounter, and like Loghain, obviously. But it's interesting, like this idea of you think everyone who followed Loghain was just like, oh, we 100% agree with that. But like, if we really want to talk about it, like, what's he supposed to do? Like, he's a lowly knight and the hero of the Battle of the River Dane is saying we're going to retreat. Like, you're going to argue with Loghain? Like, the hero of Ferelden, really?
Yeah, like you don't get to argue with your commander. Like, that's not how ranks work. It just isn't. So at some level, yeah, he just has to. But there are a few other veterans of the Ostagar, of the Battle of Ostagar, that we know. There's the Loghain apologist in Inquisition at Haven. I don't remember their name. Sir Cothrian, obviously. I mean, Wynn and Uldred are also veterans of the battle.
Fergus
Kuzland, yeah.
Kuzland.
Anyway, yes, there's several, but I feel like Sir Aaron is the one that we get the most information about other than like companions. And so that makes me like him. I also really love Vaea, and we'll talk about her on a character deep dive soon. But yeah, I just really like her. I think she's spunky. I love the kind of like chaotic good of like, yeah, I'm a squire for a knight and also a thief. Like, let me steal from all of these terrible people. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it would be really interesting for Vaea, even that Tessa and Marius, of like maybe either the Shadow Dragons or something that Lucanus and the other Antivan Crows are starting to utilize. Like, they're not being as picky with their membership. Like, you don't have to be a full-fledged Crow to benefit the cause that they're trying to put forward.
That would be interesting. I do think that there is a possibility that they do show up in Veilguard because, as we know, they've gone to Deventer. They're in Deventer. Sir Aaron is probably dead, though. Like, yeah. Just let's be real here.
I mean, okay, let's be honest, though. If Hondo Anaka is still alive in the Star Wars canon, I think there's hope for Sir Aaron.
I thought Hondo died.
No, he's
still alive.
He's at Galaxy's Edge, so he is by canon alive during the sequels. He's in the Smuggler's Run ride.
Well, I know we've done the ride. I just didn't know that if you appeared at Galaxy's Edge, that meant you're alive during the sequels.
Well, no, because Galaxy's Edge takes place during the sequels. Like, that's its time period that it's set in.
I guess that's fair. Okay, well, this is not a Star Wars podcast.
This is my argument for Sir Aaron likely being alive.
Well, he's not a Grey Warden, so he has that going for him, but it also is Thetis. So let's add 1 point and take away 3,000.
Okay, whatever.
Let's see, what else? I said I liked Vaea, which I do. I do think Sebastian's appearance in this is interesting because he's like very charismatic, like throwing parties and celebrating and like has all these friends. And I just feel like that is not the Sebastian we meet in Dragon Age 2.
You know how like when you have a really bad job, it affects your personality? And then you're like a terrible person because you have a really bad job. But then you get free of that and you become a nicer person to everyone around you. I feel like that's Sebastian when he finally got out of Kirkwall.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Like once he's away from Anders, it's kind of like your work enemy. Like once you're away from your work enemy, it's like, oh my God, I can be happy again.
Or like, I feel like it's hard to judge. Like, I feel like it's hard to judge Sebastian's base personality because he's in such a time of stress and turmoil and his own self-discovery. I mean, we can judge him for the shitty things he does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
no, I do agree with you. Like he is in a majorly stressful situation, probably the most stressful time of his entire life because his whole entire family's been killed basically. So I get it. Like he's not at his best, but also I do still, even though that's true, feel like he has undergone a massive personality shift here. All right. Well, do you have anything else to say about Knight Errant, or are we ready to give our ratings?
I think I'm ready for a rating.
Okay.
I went first last time. So.
I would say this one is a 4.25 for me. Closer to 4.5. I think this is a really good comic. I think the characters are very compelling. Again, and I think this is just part of it being a comic for me. I want more context. I want more description. I want more interiority. And you just don't get that in a comic book. You get that in a novel. You can even kind of get that in a short story, but the comics are so action based and it's like bump, 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 bump. We're going from action to action to action to thing to thing to thing. And I personally, when I'm reading something, want it to be a little bit more slower paced and to have a little bit more of those internal thoughts and emotions. So for me, that's why I'm probably never going to rate a comic as a 5, personally.
Yeah, I can see why that. I think I'd also give it a 4. Just because I'm with you. Like, I want a little more... I want more dialogue. I want more like conversations to build character development, and you just don't get that in the format of a comic.
Yeah, you don't. So it sounds like we're both pretty united. Magekiller is probably, both of these probably, I would say, around a 4. Which, if you remember our last episode on the comics, I think we gave them 2s and 1s. So we are much happier with this set than the last set, for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. It's just better writing.
But I think we're ready to wrap it up for the day.
All right. Well, thanks for bringing this and organizing this. And thank you all for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. You can find us on Twitter at DA Lorecast.
If you have any lore questions, topics to unpack, or side character suggestions, join our Cups Podcasting and More Discord server. It's easily the best place on the internet. You can also support us financially through our Patreon. You can find us there on patreon.com/DragonAgeLorecast.
The Dragon Age Lorecast is part of the Robots Radio Network. For more information about the Robots Radio Network, join the Discord server via the link in our episode description.
If you enjoyed the show or learned something new today, please subscribe, leave us a review, and join the Patreon. And if you enjoyed our intro and outro music, give a big thank you to Pipeman Studios. Thank you, Pipeman. Thanks again for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. We'll see you next time.
Ever wanted to be a content creator but had no clue where to begin? Come join me as I sit down with content creators that have already faced the challenges you're up against, as they discuss the tips and tricks that help them be successful. Here on The Content Creator's Guide, available wherever podcasts can be found.